Chapter 17. Between Mars and Neptune. I can accept no excuse for this incompetence, Germanicus raged at his newest cavalry commander. I'd been left at the entrance of the tent, so I couldn't get more than glimpses of the scene from between the legs of the assembled officers, but Caesar didn't look alone in his annoyance. He walked over to the desk behind him and lifted a wax tablet. He studied it for a second, then he took a step back towards the gathered officers, and I lost sight of him. You knew that they would be waiting. How could you let them disengage so easily? With respect, I thought it was my job to screen our forces against attack from the rear, Tubero replied. Respect? You show me precious little. It was your task to find and eliminate Arminius's cavalry. Arminius himself, if you got the chance. A few of the men shifted uncomfortably, and Germanicus rounded on his newly appointed cavalry commander with a face like thunder. If you just had an ounce of competence, we could have ended this war today. But you have allowed the whoreson who slaughtered 3 legions and cast shame on us all to escape again. You have deepened a shame that the rest of us spilled blood to expunge today. Tubero's face darkened. I apologize if I have not served as well as you might have hoped. I could sense the tension just below the surface. He would dearly have loved to say more, but knew it would cost dear to do so. You have not served at all, Germanicus replied. You asked for your chance, and you have had it. General Certinus shall have command of the cavalry once more. Perhaps there is some chance we may yet run the rebel down. My lord, any attempt to find Arminius is unlikely to meet with success as things stand, General Silius said. The weather will turn soon enough, and we must think of getting the army back home. Let us not also forget that the longer we remain in the north, the more likely it is that the Germans on the Rhine will take advantage of our absence and begin to raid. Your point is well taken, Silius, Germanicus sighed. I just can't believe we've lost him again. Is there no chance that our spies might still get some hint of him? Germanicus cast a glare at Tubero. It is most unsatisfactory to have come so far and have risked so much only to have to give up without our prize. Silius looked to Marcus, who shook his head slightly. I share your frustration, my lord, but I have spoken to my best agents on this matter. It would be a fool's errand to go searching for Arminius so deep in enemy territory. We cannot track one fleeing horse amidst thousands, and even if we could, there's no telling where he might hide in this wilderness, or who might take him in. Germanicus nodded. I feared as much. He strode back to the table, and I heard the dull thud of the tablet dropping onto the wooden surface. The table creaked as Germanicus rested his weight on his fists and let out a breath. So, Victoria has lifted her skirts, but she is yet to let fall her girdle. As long as Arminius remains beyond our reach, there will be no laurels, and what opportunity we did have to finish things here and now has been well and truly squandered. Eyes swiveled in Tubero's direction. Do I state the case correctly? We have taught the Germans the cost of spilling Roman blood, but I fear we will likely not capture Arminius this year, Silius agreed. Another year? Does anyone here want that? Silence greeted the weary question. Time was short. Tiberius's jealousy and fear at his nephew's growing popularity were becoming ever more apparent. As Silius was to comment to Marcus after the meeting, Germanicus had to be asking himself if Tubero, a good friend of the emperor's, had deliberately ensured that Germanicus would be denied the laurels that would have accompanied the capture of the German leader. We had 2 decisive victories to be sure, but no one wanted another year of campaigning. Even those who did knew that the political situation was making the prospect less and less likely. They changed the topic to the surrender of the defeated tribes and the logistics of getting home. I was only dimly aware of it all as I put my head on my paws and slept. The next day they threw the arms of the conquered in a pile. We blessed the heaped iron in the name of Mars and accepted the surrender of the Angravari. Germanicus showed his benevolence by leaving their villages unburned and allowing them to swear allegiance to Rome once more. The fates showed less mercy to those who followed the great commander. All we had to look forward to was being crammed back onto the ships and lurching our way back to our respective camps. I hated travel by water at the best of times. My stomach still lurches to remember that crossing. Whatever prayers we offered to Mars, we should have offered double to Neptune. Marcus spat water from the deluge around us and looked at Caius. And you would risk further displeasure by saying this now? Icy wind ripped at our shredded sails, and I feared that it might be the precursor to more hail. The boat bucked, and a wave almost lifted me from the deck. I'd say bailing is more important than deciding what gods to placate, Aulus yelled over the howling wind. He heaved another bucket over the side and the other two followed suit. Marcus almost hit me when he plunged the bucket in for a second time, but I didn't move. I was past caring. The water was cold enough that I doubt I'd have felt it if he'd brained me with the thing. The ship rolled again and I was forced to scrabble to maintain my position near Marcus. "The real question we should ask is whether our shipbuilder's seams are going to hold," Marcus shouted. The world shifted again and foaming water spilled over us. "What the fuck does it matter how good the seams are?" Caius demanded through chattering teeth. "There must be more water getting in over the side than coming through the bottom." All along the ship men bailed frantically to return the water from whence it had come. Thunder grated above us, and as the boat began to roll again, a bolt of lightning lanced down onto the sea. 2 more followed, lighting up the tattered remains of our broken fleet. "It seems you left Jupiter from your reckoning," Marcus called out to Caius. "I wonder if there are enough of us to make a good sacrifice to all 3. Aulus dipped his bucket and heaved. "Keep such impiety to yourself," Caius yelled. "Anyone get a look at how the other ships are managing?" Marcus asked. His own eyes were narrowed as he tried to make out anything between the haze of flying salt water and the after images of the lightning. Aulus turned a haggard face on my master. "Hard to tell what I saw," he panted. "Nobody's going to be able to keep their lanterns lit in this. Which also means no one's going to pick us up if this wretched tub comes apart," Caius moaned. Marcus stared down the deck to where the Marines scrabbled with the rigging. "Let's hope they know their business." "I doubt it. Half the buggers were roped in just to man this fleet. We're lucky to still be in one piece," Aulus said. The sky opened up suddenly and more hail rattled down on us. "Juno have mercy," Caius cried. "4 gods now," Aulus observed, but his humour was clearly strained. The men worked in panting silence for a while, then I heard a terrible cry, a shrill sound that pierced even the roaring of the storm. "What the hell was that?" Caius asked. Aulus looked back. "They're throwing the horses overboard." We followed his glance to the other side of the boat where the Marines were fighting with a bucking horse. The animal's eyes rolled in its skull, and foam as white as any on the waves about us was collected at the sides of its mouth. The men around it were near as panicked at the prospect of the boat going under, so they showed no regard for the horse's madness. Other men were already throwing any cargo they could find over the side. They pulled and whipped the horse until its fear of the men around it was greater than its fear of the cold water. When it jumped over the side, they brought others to follow it. I heard the horses screaming to each other over the thunder. Aulus started. "It must be more desperate than we guessed." "Then keep bailing," Marcus cried. The men fell to their task with the tolerance earned through half a lifetime of digging encampments. They must have felt the same cold I did. Many of them had it worse, since they had given their cloaks to help repair the sails, but they kept working beyond all endurance. So focused were they that no one noticed the large Marine who crossed the deck and tried to pick me up by the scruff of the neck. Had I been any smaller, I don't doubt I would have been overboard before I knew it. One moment I was huddled shivering near Marcus, the next I was half over the side. Black waves tipped with white reached out hungrily, breaking inches from my face. I howled and pushed back with all my strength. The man holding me renewed his efforts and my feet slipped on the sodden deck. I forced myself down, leaving him with a handful of hair and rounding on him, delivering a savage bite to his hand. I hunkered down growling, my back legs wedged against the side of the ship. The Marine was determined to have me off, but he was not foolish enough to try and take me head on. He hesitated, and that gave my fellows time to react. "What the fuck are you doing?" Marcus took a step to my side, the heavy wooden bucket dangling from his hand. "All animals are to go over the side. We need to lose the weight." The Marine's face was contorted with pain, and he was having trouble keeping his feet on the rolling deck. He could only use one hand to steady himself. "You come any closer to my dog and I'll lighten this boat by exactly your weight," Marcus promised. The Marine glared at me. No doubt the pain in his hand made him more eager to see me into the water. "Be reasonable, sir. Even the chiefs don't get to keep their horses." "Ferox weighs less than a horse," Marcus said. "The animal must be put overboard. Captain's orders." "He told you to throw my dog off this ship." "No, but he said all excess weight, and that included all the livestock." Aulus and Caius had ceased bailing, and they stood shoulder to shoulder with my master. The Marine looked nervous. "You can't fight everyone on the crew. We have our orders." "I will kill any man who tries to touch my dog," Marcus warned. He glanced at the men next to him. "You two keep bailing." "Sir." They gave a salute and went back to work. The Marine looked doubtful. "You're an officer, then?" "Not the issue," Marcus growled. What is at issue is whether you want to waste time on this when we should be keeping the water out of the ship. You know we can't fight you, the Marine said. Will you truly risk everything for an animal? I've risked more for less. Go back to your proper duties while you still have one hand to do it. If it comes to a choice between Neptune and Mars, then you know a soldier's answer. Marcus looked over to me where I waited at bay, daring the man to come closer. You've had all the warning you'll get from either of us now. Do not return unless you want to see what he can do when told to attack. The Marine retreated quickly, and Marcus went back to bailing. By the time the weather cleared and we had caught up with the rest of the fleet, I was the only cargo left on the ship. The storm cost us many ships and scattered the fleet all along the coast. Some men even washed up on the shores of Britain. But as stragglers limped in, the losses turned out to be far fewer than everyone had first feared. The legions made their way south, still mostly intact, despite the rumours that had spread throughout the region that Germanicus's poor relationship with the sea had finally been his undoing. The overblown tales of Roman weakness were to prompt a growing boldness on the part of the Germans, who now took the territory across the Rhine to be poorly defended. Even as Caesar was falling back into Agrippina's arms in a tearful homecoming, the news reached us that German leaders were planning new raids. Orders for a new expedition across the river had come hard on the heels of our return to camp. With the campaign season rapidly failing, we plunged back into Germany to give the tribesmen a necessary reminder of our strength.